We're going to get started on our backend by wiring up our GraphQL server in server.js. For that, we'll need Apollo server from apollo-server, and we'll instantiate this new server and pass in two things, typedefs and resolvers. We'll create our typedefs in typedefs.js, and in order to write our type definitions in the GraphQL schema language, we'll bring in GQL from the Apollo server package as well. We'll immediately export our created schema and write our type definitions between a set of backticks. And in our app, we're going to have two types of data, user data and pin data. So each piece of user data is going to have on it an underscore ID field, a unique ID, and therefore of type ID, a name field of type string, an email field of type string, and a picture field, which will be a URL and of type string too. Then we'll define the name of our first query, our me query, which will return our current user. Then to execute our me resolver function, we'll go to resolvers and then export an object with module.exports, and within the query object we'll write our resolver function for the me query. And for now, since we're not hooked up to a database, we just want to return some data that corresponds to our user type that we just declared. So I'll create a dummy user above the object we're exporting with an underscore ID field, with a unique string value, a name of type string, email of type string, and a picture, which will be some URL. Now we can head back to server.js and require both typedefs and resolvers. We'll pass that to our instantiated Apollo server. And then when our server is created, we'll put it in a variable which we'll call server. And then to spin up our server, we'll execute the listen method off of it. Now we can save all three of our files, and then within our terminal, run the dev script with yarn dev or npm run dev. So NodeMon is going to spin up our GraphQL server in server.js, but we don't see where it's listening on. To see the URL that we're listening on, we can add a then statement, and within the parameters to the function within then, we can destructure the URL, and then in the body of the function, console log that our server is listening on, and then interpolate that URL value. So if we save server.js, NodeMon is going to restart our server, and we see that our server is listening on localhost 4000. Now if we visit localhost 4000, we can go to localhost 4000/playground, and that's going to open up the GraphQL playground for us. If we take a look at the schema tab, we see our one me query listed here, which returns some data of type user. And then to execute our query, we'll provide within a set of curly braces the name of the query, me, and then within another set of curly braces provide the fields that we want, and we'll request ID, name, email, and picture, so that once we hit the play button, we should get all of those values that we put within that user object returned within this data object.